everybody, and welcome to Getting to Know Your Neighbor. The idea behind this is almost everybody's got a neighbor, and sometimes your neighbor has an interesting story or a compelling background that maybe you just don't know about. They're just your neighbor. Today we're going to be talking to Greg Morton, and if you live in the Picture Rocks area, which is just west of Tucson, a little suburb, Greg Morton is your neighbor. Greg, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for having me.
I just want to say you've got a fascinating story. You've got I think your guitar's over there. Mm-hmm. That little piece of wood and 6 strings have taken you all over the world, and you've met some fabulous people, in the process. Now, let's just start. I like to start at the beginning.
Sure.
Where were you born and raised?
Born in Memphis, Tennessee, in 1955 was when we were born, and I was born with my woo-mate. We call him woo-mate.
Yep.
My identical twin brother, Randall Morton.
I wanted to get to him a little bit later too.
And best of friends from day one. We came out being best of friends from the start.
Well, being from Memphis, obviously it has such a rich musical culture. I mean, if you went to grew up in Indiana, you might have picked up a basketball. Yeah. Colorado, maybe hit the ski slopes, but music seems to be a real rich culture in Memphis, so it was only natural. Now, I've heard this said before too. Sometimes you don't really get to choose your passion; it chooses you. Do you think that's fair to say with you and the guitar?
I think that's true to a really great extent. And music has always been in my blood, in my family and stuff. So from generations of cousins and relatives that played music.
Well, when do you recall the first time you picked up a guitar?
Well, the first time I picked up a guitar, I picked up a plastic guitar, a little Roy Rogers type guitar, and that didn't, that lasted for a little while. You couldn't really play it, but I fell in love with the guitar. My brother had a little plastic banjo, of all things.
That's amazing.
And so that's kind of when we got our first inclination of we loved instruments.
Well, I wanted to go back to when you were really young in Memphis. Mm-hmm. As a kid, were you aware of Elvis Presley at the time? I mean, obviously that's where.
Yeah. And we didn't live very far away from him, maybe 6-7 miles away. And as kids, you could ride your bike over and watch him play out in the yard, and playing with his horses or with his motorcycle or with his daughter out in the yard.
So you could see him behind the gates there at Graceland?
Oh, yeah. It was nothing at those times, and nobody was writing on the wall and making a big deal out of it, And Vernon, his, I believe it was his dad or somebody was keeping the gate and watching. He'd talk to us, and we'd just have fun. And on occasion, you just see Elvis out there messing around playing. I got a lot of funny little Elvis stories.
Well, I can't help but think if you were born, you and Randall were born, say, 10 years earlier, mm-hmm. I would imagine your paths would have crossed with Elvis in the music scene there in Memphis.
Right. And I always said if I ever got good enough, I'd sit on his porch and play till he came out.
Well, you did get good enough eventually. Do you remember when you did start, you and Randall started playing, pretty regularly, and that's when you really fell in love with the guitar?
Absolutely. What happened was we started at an early age listening and loving music by going to our grandparents' house in Henderson, Tennessee. And they had a table. It was kind of tall, but they put us on a tractor battery with a piece of wood, sit on that and turn on the Grand Ole Opry, and we'd listen to the radio and hear Flat and Scruggs, hear all these people, Roy Acuff and all these people playing and singing, and just kind of fell in love with that type of music at an early age. And then on our 13th birthday in 1969, our folks asked us what we wanted. For Christmas it was. For Christmas time, they asked us what we wanted, and we said we wanted guitars. So
probably wasn't a big surprise by that time.
No, and so and all our cousins played. Like I said, we'd go to little house parties, and they'd be playing and stuff, playing bluegrass music. So we wanted instruments. So our dad got us a couple of little electric guitars, and went for our very first lesson. I went for my very first lesson at a place called Guitar and Drum City in 1969. We were 13. And I went in to take my lesson, and a guy in there, I asked him, can you teach me how to play Hey Jude or something like that? And he goes, I don't like that. I said, well, how about Crimson and Clover? He goes, I don't like that one either. And he had on white pants. He had a little red ink pen, and he dropped the ink pen on his pants and kind of freaked out. And then he just wrote a little note, handed it to me. He said, go give that to your parents. And my parents were out in the car waiting on me to get to the lesson. And so I gave them the little piece of paper, and it said, your sons aren't musically inclined. Please discontinue lessons.
Wow.
So I went back in the store and got me a Mel Bay chord book, and they had big chords, and took it home and learned the chords on it. And then I just went from there, listened to records. I'd go save all my little lunch money and buy me the latest Glenn Campbell 45 that came out, and try to learn what's on the album like that. And my cousin Joe Taylor was a really great guitar player back then too. So he would teach me Wildwood Flower, Storms on the Ocean, some of these Mother Maybelle tunes. And then we just blossomed. We went from there, and our cousin took us to a bluegrass festival in 1970. And he won first place on the guitar contest there. And then also at that same time, we got the bug to play bluegrass really big at that time. And so we traded our electric guitars in for banjos and guitars, and started doing that and playing together and just listening to records and learning tune after tune after tune, and got to, on that same year in 1969, they had a little contest at the school, at Berkeley High School. And we entered it, and got lucky and won first place. Our good friends, the Burgess brothers, who were like twins, tap dance, and we were watching them tap dance and go, oh man, I don't know if we're going to win this or not. But we got lucky and won that. And then from that, it kind of sparked and thought, well, we got something good going on here. Let's just continue and just have some fun playing. And we just absolutely loved it. We didn't have a TV for like 7 years, so that was our outlet and our enjoyment. That was our entertainment.
Well, I know that you guys put in the work. I mean, like you said, that's what you did all the time. You played your guitar, your twin brother Randall played the banjo. Was there a time when maybe you were on stage or maybe you were just home practicing that you looked at one another and said, we're pretty good?
Well, we never really considered ourselves really good because we weren't, we always thought you can always get better.
Sure.
So we thought, well, we're doing good. We felt like we were doing pretty good. And we just kept on playing, and people seemed to like it. Our very first stage we played at after the little school was over in West Memphis, Arkansas. They put us on a wrestling ring. And the announcer was up there jumping up and down, bouncing. And there we were bouncing up with the banjo and guitar because the thing was a wrestling ring.
Yeah.
And had that big old microphone right there bouncing up and down. So we were playing. The people loved it, and we thought, well, this is good. This is what we're going to do.
Well, then as you began to get better and better and played, I know you entered numerous contests and won most of them, but who were the people that you listened to that said, I aspire to be like that guy, or you liked the way that person played? Who was your inspiration?
Well, my first inspiration was Joe Taylor, my cousin, who played really well. And then secondly, a really big influence on me was, like I said, Glenn Campbell.
Yeah, sure.
We'd watch the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour in 1969, and they had John Hartford, who wrote "Gentle My Mind" for Glenn Campbell, was on that show too, playing banjo, and Larry McNeely after that. So we just fell in love with that show, and so that was my big inspiration was Glenn Campbell, and my brothers too. And then we got into the bluegrass thing, and there were people like Clarence White and Dan Crary were some of my favorites, and a lot of people like Doc Watson and people like that. But that was kind of my main primary influences were Glenn Campbell, Dan Crary, and Clarence White, who ended up playing with the Byrds.
Oh, okay. And then I know that you've met and played with a ton of people. Tell me about your introduction to Bill Monroe. Some people say the father of bluegrass.
Oh, yeah. Well, at our very first bluegrass festival in Alabama, Colbert Canyon, Alabama, we went there, and we had our instruments in the band and coming through the gate, and James Monroe, Bill Monroe's son, was taking tickets at the gate, and he saw that we had instruments in the car, and he said, "Do you guys play?" And my dad said, "Well, these boys play." And they wanted somebody to play in between the main acts. And there was a lot of big people there. Bill Monroe, country gentlemen were there. Just a lot of wonderful, Ralph Stanley and all these people. Oh, my goodness. So we got up and played in between the main acts. And then when we were doing one of our shows, right before Bill Monroe was supposed to get up, there's a little bitty wooden stage and a little bitty door there. It was kind of dark. And so it got really dark for a few seconds, and looked back there, and there's a gentleman with a white cowboy hat and a little red bow tie and a black suit and a little mandolin. It was Bill Monroe. So he came up to play with us and did Salt Creek, a tune that he wrote. And then from that point on, every time we played a festival wherever Bill Monroe was at, he always came up and played that tune with us.
So, and again, people say he's the father of bluegrass.
Yeah.
So did you feel close enough to him where you could contact him, or, when you saw him out on the road, of course he knew who you guys were?
Yeah, he knew who we were.
Yeah.
And because the thing about it is, in bluegrass music, especially in that time in the early 70s, and everybody was approachable.
Yeah.
It wasn't like now where they got security guards and all this stuff. You can't see your heroes.
Yeah.
These people had, out in the woods, they'd have the little table set up with all their records and pictures and everything for you to sign, for them to sign and talk to you, and so you can meet all your heroes. All the people I wanted to meet, I can meet them so easily, and became friends with most all of them.
Well, and you played with a lot of people. I know Mark Colley, who had a string of hits on country radio in the 90s, I believe,
Right.
and Buck White and his girls, they had a band called the Whites, and they even had a couple of songs, and they had a couple of famous band members.
They did. Yeah. Jerry Douglas played with that band too. And back in those days, I think that was around 1975 76 that we started playing with the Whites. They called us up, and we met them at a festival down in Gadsden, Alabama. And we were playing, and on the bill was Ralph Stanley, and Ralph Stanley had Ricky Skaggs and Keith Whitley playing with him, you know?
Yeah.
And Keith kind of liked or had a little crush on our bass player, Cheryl White,
Yeah.
So we'd kid him and have fun, but we just became friends with all those people. And Marty Stewart, I met him in 1970 at a little bluegrass festival there in Memphis, and became friends with him and Mark O'Connor, amazing fiddle player, who was a kind of a child prodigy at the time. And so we met him in 1970 at the same festival with Marty Stewart. And then after that, his mom would send him from Mount Lake Terrace, Washington, to our house in Memphis on a plane. He'd show up with a fiddle in one hand and a skateboard in the other. We'd skateboard and fiddle and go to all these contests throughout the South. And we got lucky. We won. I say we got lucky. We won all the contests that we entered into, at that time, because we were really honed in on our skill and really worked at it as young kids. And
Well, wasn't Randall at age 21 a national banjo champion?
he was.
Yeah.
We went out to, our mom took us out to Winfield, Kansas with the national championships. It was a national guitar championship there. So Mark O'Connor won the guitar contest. I backed him up, and he backed me up. And then we all backed up Randall, and he won the national championship on the banjo on his 21st birthday. We just did contest after contest. And we would travel, we'd go to Knoxville and play on the Cass Walker TV show, or go to Virginia and play some festivals. In Monroe, Louisiana, we played a contest down there, and we won the guitar, banjo, mandolin, band contest and stuff. And then the mayor came up and said what a good example we were to the young kids, and we're keep on going what we're doing. And then they let us open the show for Ricky Nelson.
Oh, yeah.
And so we got to meet Ricky Nelson and just different things like that.
Well, we're going to have you play just a little bit here pretty soon. We couldn't get Greg to do a full song because he wanted to get paid, and we just don't have the budget yet for that. But we'll pick a little bit here. Now, okay, so you guys are getting really well known around Mississippi and Memphis and all around the South there. How'd you end up in Hawaii playing in the Don Ho Band?
Well, what happened was we had some friends that went on a USO tour to the Orient, and they landed over in Hawaii. The last stop was Hawaii, and they met a really talented young man named Earl Hughes, who played the fiddle, steel guitar, and banjo, and everything. He sang great, and he was looking for some musicians, and so they told us and gave us Earl's number, And one day we were sitting out there playing tennis, or trying to play tennis, and on the tennis courts out there, my brother Randall and I. And I had a Camaro that looked like James Garner's on a show that he was on.
Rockford Files?
Yeah, Rockford Files. A little gold Camaro at the time. And it was a nice little car. And Randall goes, "Hey, Greg, why don't you sell your car? let's go to Hawaii. I said, well, Randall, if you set it up, I'll sell the car and we'll go. And he told me he had it all set up and everything. And he said he got a hold of Earl and everything was good to go. So I sold my car and got 2 one-way tickets, and I had about $85, $87 left. And we headed over to Hawaii, one-way trip tickets, and we're flying over the island, and Randall looks down, and he knows nobody's there to pick us up, It was getting into a little bit in the evening time. So we landed, got all our stuff out. I had an amp in a big wooden box and all this luggage and stuff, guitars. And so we get there, and there's no Earl Hughes there. And Randall goes, well, I really didn't get a hold of him, but I'm going to call him now.
But I'm going to, yeah.
So he called him, and Earl was probably busy playing a show or doing something, so we didn't get a hold of him so I said, well, we got to get out of here. So there was a Best Western right across the street. So I paid the a guy to take us across the street, taxi guy in a station wagon, took us across the street to this Best Western and got us a place for the night. And I had about maybe $7 left, And then in the morning we had to be out by 11. So we still hadn't gotten a hold of Earl. And then by 11 o'clock, he got a hold of Earl, and here comes Earl in a black pickup truck, picked us up, took us to his place, and we played and had a great time with him and some friends. And then I'll tell you something about Earl. He had such a great band anyway on the side too. And so we would play with Earl, and we also had our own band after a while that we called Sea Breeze. And that's when Mark Colley came over and played a show, some shows with us over there too. But we played at a place too, not only Don Ho show, but we also played a place called the Red Lion that was underground. It had a big, beautiful aquarium for the wall, was all aquarium, and it had mermaids who would dive down in there. And so we played there after hours. After we played our show, we would go there and play from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning. And we had people come in like John Snyder of Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, yeah.
He came in and he sang an Elvis song with us. I forgot what the name of it was. I could tell you anytime but now. And then we also had Gene Clark of the Byrds came in and he played Mr. Tambourine Man on my guitar. And so we had a lot of wonderful experiences like that. And then, of course, we met Don Ho, and he liked our playing. He said, play us a tune, and we played him a tune or two that was kind of popular at the time. And he said, well, the folks out there like it, you got your place to play. And so we ended up playing. They liked it, and we ended up staying and had a real nice apartment with a chandelier and a waterfall in the living room and a big lanai and one of those big cement ponds like on the Beverly Hillbillies.
Well, now Don Ho, and some people may not be familiar with him, but he was, of course, big on the islands of Hawaii, but he was big all over the world too. He had a song. What was the one song he had that was really popular?
Tiny Bubbles.
Tiny Bubbles,
Pearly
yeah.
Shells.
Yeah, that was a popular all over the world, and he was just an interesting guy. Now, while you were in Hawaii, again, you got a chance to meet a lot of people, and you had one guy in particular that kept wanting you to come play golf. Or was it golf or tennis?
Golf.
Golf, okay.
Yeah. And so what happened was Earl Hughes was really good friends with James MacArthur. And so they would come by and ask me and my brother if we wanted to go play golf with them. And we were so much into just going to the beach and having fun, and trying to surf or whatever we wanted to do. And so we said, well, one of these days we'll go. So one day he came by and we said, yeah, let's do it. So he goes, well, meet us in the morning at my place. I'll make some breakfast and we'll go golfing. So we went over there, sitting on the couch, and James was in there cooking some eggs up. And a TV commercial came on, and it was him doing an Aloha Airlines commercial. I said, James, that looks just like you. That's you, isn't it? He goes, yeah, that's me. He goes, I do a lot of TV stuff. I said, really? He goes, yeah, I'm Dano on Hawaii Five-0. I said, you're kidding. So and then I looked, and sure enough, it was Dano on Hawaii Five-0.
And for people younger people who may not be familiar, well, there is a new Hawaii Five-0 now, but there was the old one with Jack Lord and James MacArthur. He would, what was his name? Jack Lord's character. Anyway, he would always say, "Book him, Dano."
Yeah.
And that was Dano, was
That was
James
Dano.
MacArthur. Yeah.
So we had fun. We had a fun time out there playing golf or trying to play golf and having fun with James. He was just a down to earth, super nice guy. So met a lot of wonderful people, George Benson, a lot of people, and had a wonderful time.
Well, you were in Hawaii for a few years, and why would you leave Hawaii? What happened there?
Well, we were there long enough to kind of get the what they call rock fever, where we wanted to go do something different. And at the time, like our friends were doing USO tours and stuff like that too. So we decided we'll come on home for a while, and we can always come back. We always had an open door to come back. So we did. We went to Memphis and played at a little place called Liberty Land. And at Liberty Land, one day we were playing on a log cabin house thing, it's kind of a little rustic thing, banjo and guitar, kind of fits that look, So they hired us to play music on that porch. And just so happened that a colonel from the USO came in, and he was going to audition this band. He was kind of a slick band, had electric piano, had electric guitars, and all this stuff, and all these girls singing and playing, and he was going to audition them to do a USO tour to the Orient. And well, what happened was, just like this beautiful rain season we got here, it came up a big rainstorm, lightning and thunder, and it knocked out the power where they couldn't play or they couldn't do anything. They could sing, but they couldn't play anything. He goes, well, that's not going to work. And he walks out with the lady, Melinda Grable, kind of shaking his head, and he looks over there at us playing on that porch. He goes, that's it. He goes, do you guys want to do a USO tour? I said, sure, we'll do a USO tour.
Now that's fate.
It was. So we ended up doing one to Japan, Korea, Okinawa, Iwo Jima, Marcus Island, Guam, Philippines, and all that. And then ended up a year or so later doing another one to Europe, Germany, Holland, Denmark, Austria. And that was a wonderful experience that we could have never been able to see the world and met so many wonderful people and had the appreciation for the armed forces that we did and saw how they trained. And we'd go on a hill in Seoul, Korea and play for like a couple of people in a mountain area and then fly down and play for like a couple thousand people in another area. And went to the DMZ zone, where it was a little iffy there. You had to keep your hands real straight and all these blue buildings and lines going through the buildings and North Koreans right there with their guns and our guys were up there with their guns. It's just so in the bridge of no return. You just got to see some wonderful places and wonderful experience that otherwise we'd have never been able to do.
Well, now again, you've been all over the world with your guitar and met so many fascinating people, and now you're in picturesque Picture Rocks.
Absolutely.
How did that happen?
Well, I'm lucky because I got to meet people like you and your lovely wife, and so what happened was. I was playing in Memphis, Tennessee, and I got a call from a friend of ours, and he called himself Jeep. His name is Johnny Colliette. He played the banjo, and he wanted to put together a little band to play out at Telluride at the Bluegrass Festival. So, and they had a little house practice place in Apache Junction, and Goldfield Mine was right there too. A nice little, fun little place, mining place. So he was practicing there. So I went out. He paid me to come out and practice and then go do the show. So one of my friends in the band knew some people here from Tucson. So they all came up, and one of the persons was Debbie, and she wasn't going to go. My wife, Debbie.
I knew it had to be a girl
at the time. Oh yeah. So she was there, and we were practicing and playing at the little place, and she was showing me all the desert plants out there at the Goldfield Mine place, and she really didn't want to have much to do with me, and because I looked like Donny Osmond, had a pink Isoid shirt on and khaki jeans and a penny loafer with the shiny penny in it, So I was too Donny Osmond for her because she liked the hippie guys, So anyway, I met her again up at the Telluride Bluegrass Festival. She always went to that one way before I even knew about the festival. So anyway, I met her up there, and we talked and had a good time. Did a lot of hikes and stuff, and watched the music together, and became really good friends. And then I went on up to Aspen and played for about 6 months up there, playing some clubs up there. And then I went back to Memphis, and then Debbie kept writing these letters and the calligraphy, real pretty letters, and come on out, check out Tucson. And so it come be, Debbie wrote those letters, and I came out to Tucson. And I just fell in love with it because my room in Memphis was full of cactus and full of cowboy Indian things, you know. It's just a natural for me to be here, and I love the cactus. So when I saw it, I saw the big swirls out here. I said, man, this is where I want to live.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And then all the folks out here, like you guys were so super nice. I said, this is the best place in the world. And I've been a lot of places, you know. And I just fell in love with it, with the mountains that surrounded our beautiful city, all the beautiful places to hike, like the hike you and I did a few weeks back. I mean, it's just so serene and beautiful, and the sunsets we get here and the nice folks. And the amount of musicians that are here in this town.
Yeah.
It's incredible. We got Andy Hersey, Tim O'Connor, and all these great people. And that's kind of where I met you at, was I started playing here. I came here in 1992. I've been here 30 years. In 2022 will be my 30th year. So anyway, I got a call to go play down in Sonoyta to play with Andy and Tim O'Connor and people like that. And that's where I met you, was at down there. And then we would play on Mount Lemon at the lodge up there, where the raccoon would come up to the window, and we'd play, and they had the best times ever. And I just met so many people out here, but we've got just a community of musicians that's just as great as Nashville.
Well, the Chamber of Commerce is going to love you for that endorsement. But speaking of your lovely wife, Deb, she's retired now, but she volunteers at our wonderful Desert Museum.
She does.
And she does a couple of interesting things. One of them she's doing today. Tell us what she does out there.
Well, today she's doing the stingray exhibit. It's the touch stingray. You can go out there and pay a couple of dollars and feed the stingrays and pet them, touch them. You know, they're real soft, real pretty. So Debbie does that on Fridays, and then on Thursday she volunteers for the Raptor Free Flight.
You talked about Telluride just a few moments ago, a festival you played there a lot. You actually wrote a song about Telluride.
I did write a tune about Telluride.
Can you play just a little bit of that?
I can see if I can play a little bit of that.
Just a little bit of it.
Sure.
I promised everybody we'd give you a chance just to pick a little bit, just a few seconds of that. Love that song. I've always thought that song should be in a movie score of some sort, a Western movie or something. Now, I know that living out in Picture Rocks, it's a little rural area, again, just west of Tucson, a little suburb of Tucson, and you've had a variety of pets and animals out there.
I have. We started off with a potbelly pig named Dina, and we called her Dina the Javelina, but she's just a little potbelly pig that I got from another place in Coolidge, Arizona. And so brought her home in a box, and she bit my wife the first time she met her. But anyway, so we lived in a little cottage there in town, and Dina was just about this big, and then she just got bigger and bigger. We'd take her to the parks, and she'd run and bark like a dog, and these little circle eights between your legs, and just a wonderful pet, and she could run for miles and come right on back, and just like a really trained dog, And she would run with the dogs at the park there in town, and but she slept in the bed with us, and she was little at the time, and she could jump up in the bed, and then she got bigger and bigger, and she put her little hands down and put her face on the bed and spread her face out, and I just had to pick her up and put her in the bed, and then she got to be up in the 200 range, so I built a ramp, and she got up in there, and living right there in the middle of town in a little bitty small cottage there, and so one time I'd gone to Memphis and came back, and she wanted my side of the bed, so I finally got to sleep by Debbie. So she slept there, but the problem was she rolled over upside down and wedged herself between the wall and the bed, and the legs were kicking and screaming like a jet engine. All the lights in the neighborhood were coming on. They thought I was killing Debbie,
Well, can you potty train a 250-pound potbelly pig? Is that right?
Potty trained. And we both worked day jobs too at the time too. And so she would hold herself, or we had a little thing where she could, go potty in. But she would hold it, and she would let you know. She'd go knock on the door to go out, and just like a dog, and a really wonderful pet. And then after that incident of rolling in between the bed and wedging herself in the wall and me getting a double hernia getting her out, she didn't sleep in the bed anymore. And then it wasn't long after that we moved out to Picture Rocks in that beautiful area that we love. And I built a real nice pen with misters and the heaters for the winter and all that. And so she lived a wonderful life out there. And we rescued a couple of other pigs and had them out there. And then they passed away, and Dina lived for 19 years.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty long for a popular pig.
Well, you had a really nice dog called Brody.
Yeah.
And you wrote a song for Brody.
I did.
Can you do just a little bit of that? It's called Brody's Bounce.
Yeah, see if I can do it.
Just a few seconds of that. I promised people we'd
yeah.
let you pick just a little bit. And,
Okay.
I always liked this song a lot. Brody's Bounce. Now, I know now you've got a desert tortoise out there, and I've seen some great pictures, and it will actually, you'll put out, I guess it's lettuce and desert fruit and stuff for it to eat. And is there a rabbit that comes up and shares the meal? I thought
rabbits do come up and share the meal with Tootie, our desert tortoise, and I've had her for 10 years now. And we also had another dog, Isabel, who was a little part Dotson, part Beagle. But yes, all the other animals, the squirrels will come up and eat with our turtle. The rabbits will come over and eat with the turtle. And now she's hibernating right now.
Oh, yeah.
Inside hibernating. But yes, it was a wonderful thing to watch that, unlikely animals eating together like that. And that happened a lot.
I wanted to bring up one quick story before we wrap things up. A couple of years ago, you were so kind to help Kim and I out. We hired you to play at a retirement community or a nursing home, I think.
It was.
And, the music was great. And of course, you're an instrumentalist, for the most part.
Yeah,
and
totally.
And so there were several people out in the crowd. And again, it's a nursing home. And after 2 or 3 or 4 songs, there's some lady way in the back goes, "Don't you know any songs with words to them?" You were getting heckled at a nursing home.
I was, and I thought this is a place I want to live when I.
But that was really
there now.
Really kind of you. So, Greg, it was really kind of you to do this. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Mark.
I always enjoy being around you. You play all over town. You can find. I'm sure you're on Facebook.
Play at La Casina every Friday night.
Yeah, downtown. That's a nice venue. Yeah,
wonderful venue. But I got to tell you, what a wonderful pleasure and honor it is to meet you and your family, and how nice you guys have always been to me. And I just love you guys, and thank you for letting me be part of your family too.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank
Greg
you so
Morton
much.
and his brother Randall Morton, his twin brother, guitar virtuoso. Randall, a champion banjo player as well. And I want to say thank you again, Greg. That's Getting to Know Your Neighbor. You can go to YouTube and simply type in Getting to Know Your Neighbor and watch our interviews. Thanks for watching.